Welcome to the Adjunct CEO podcast with your host, the Adjunct CEO, Dean Akers. Tips, ideas, and interviews with top leaders to help you and your business when results matter.
Well, welcome back to the Adjunct CEO. Today is our 20th episode, which is a milestone for me. I'm really excited about all the feedback I'm getting from everybody across the country, and I really appreciate the emails everybody sends me. That's help at adjunctceo.com, help at adjunctceo.com. I'm getting great questions, and please, if you're listening today and you have a question, you've listened to a couple episodes and you are asking yourself how I need to kind of really get my arms around this. I love listening to the episodes, but I don't quite know how to put it all together. Just reach out to me at help at adjunctceo.com and I'll be glad to help you for free. I've got a number of nonprofits that I'm helping now and making a big difference with. It's amazing. In fact, today's show is going to be really focused on kind of the commonalities of the questions I keep getting asked and what appears to be simple to me, I know some folks still struggle with. And I guess it would be the equivalent to somebody that can play the guitar fluently and can't understand why somebody can't learn how to play, or speak multiple languages and can't understand why people cannot understand how they can't grasp learning new languages. So today I want to really talk about how to hyper grow your business. And this is aimed at two segments, both the business owners. Actually, it could be three: the business sales managers, and then you, the salespeople out there, that your results are what make you successful financially, and in some cases, your results are what or how companies decide to keep you on the team or promote you or to give you bonuses. So, I have a common theme that tends to run true with every single client that I help as an adjunct CEO. And when I ask this question, I get kind of crickets. And then I get a bunch of stammering, stutterings, and a bunch of shots in the dark, as I call them. And the question I want to ask you today, and I want you to be able to identify as a listener out there and say to yourself how you would rate yourself, with 10 being I got it nailed and 1 being oh my God, is: have you identified your customer? Now, I know somebody's are going, of course we know who our customer is, Dean. We sell to them every day. And I go, well, okay, so you sell to them every day. Have you really identified them? And several of my businesses I've gone into as the adjunct CEO, which we've subsequently hypergrown, they say, of course we know who our customer is. And when we start talking about who the customer is, suddenly it becomes painfully obvious that we really don't know. We think it's a type of customer. We have all kinds of customers. In fact, my favorite comment is, well, we service everyone. And the answer is, no, you don't. And so when we deep dive their customers, we take, say, a sampling of 100 clients, and we'll say, well, let's use business to business right now because this is the easiest one. We'll take 100 of their last transactions, and we'll say, let's look at those 100 transactions. There is always a pattern, always a pattern. And so when we look at it, one of the individuals I was with this week, we started talking, actually 3 different companies I was with this week, we talked to in different industries, so they're not competing industries. But what was interesting is when we started identifying, it was very, very clear that their top current clients were in a segment. And I'll use this example of one of them. They told me that they had all these different, we service everybody. Okay, so do you have 100% market share? The answer, of course, is no. And quite frankly, after we finished the discussion, it was a rounding error market share. What we found is the client serviced more often than not in the law field and accountant field. So this particular client, when we looked at it, they said, yeah, it looks like we service and provide these service to a lot of accountants and to a lot of lawyers. So that becomes step one. So now we've just identified those two segments. And of course, this particular company had other segments. So we sat there and we said, okay, who are our customers in that segment? And we listed them out and put them on a piece of paper. And it was pretty obvious that these customers, and the client was it was real excited about his relationship and how they'll never buy from anybody but me, and all the stuff they were really proud of. And you should be proud of that. So then we started dissecting and saying, who are the customers that mirror this? Who are they? And so when we looked at it, let's just pick a hypothetical. Let's say it was accounting companies. So now we're targeting accounting companies, and we have 10 accounting companies. And we look at it, and we had this little mid-market segment. So we started listing every accounting company. And as we listed every accounting company in the geographical area, there started being, well, they buy out of this area. The headquarters is in New York. And I said, stop, 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 stop. I'm not interested in all that. All I want right now, and all I want you as listeners to do, is list those companies. I don't care if they'll never buy from you. I don't care if they buy from Timbuktu, but they are in fact people that you could service in your area because they have locations in your area and they need you. So we started listing them. When we kept listing them. And then we went to the book a list, which if you have a business journal group in your cities, the business journals they aggregate lists of these various industries. And we were able to open up this quote book a list, and we just saw a plethora of customers or accountants, potential customers that we did not have on our list. And of course, we had all that self-talk of, well, they buy or there, or the guy is married to the guy that sells real estate, or a girl that sells real estate, and they're all, or whatever, insurance, whatever the industry is. There's always an excuse as to why we don't have them. At the end of the day, the bottom line is we don't have them. And I don't really care. And my point to today's show is I really don't care the whys right now. All I want them is identified. So now we have this identified list. Now, why is it so powerful to create this identified list in your regional area? Well, there's a lot of things that create time value for you. This has been a tough week for me. I've attended 3 funerals this week, and not to bring anybody down, but when you attend funerals of people that are important in your life, you understand how quickly life ends or how quickly things change. And in these cases, they were not predictable outcomes. In other words, these people had not been sick for a long time. They passed, and it was sad. And the reason that I share this is nothing is predictable. However, if you translate this back to business and into strategies of the day, is now you have this list. So the predictability that you can now say you have is you've identified the people that you would like as a client. Now, here's why it's valuable for you. You already have clients in the segment. So now you kind of know their DNA. You know what they're looking for. If it's real estate, you know they're looking for certain aspects. If it's buying insurance, you know that they're looking for different kinds of coverages. If it's placements, like one of the businesses I was in is the condo industry, we knew what boards were looking for. They were looking for hassle-free results. They were looking for making sure that they got the best values, and on and on and on. But the point is now you know this particular segment, what they generally look for. And this is a powerful edge to have, a very powerful edge. And back to the funeral story, my point is everybody has the same 24 hours in a day except twice in your life, once when you're born and once when you die. So when people tell me they don't have enough time and they talk about, it's so big a business, I go, let's break this down. And what we're talking about today will allow you to do that. So everybody now should have taken a piece of paper, or in the coming week, take a piece of paper and list every potential account on there. without any reason why they would not buy for you, but they're in the segment that you've serviced. Once you have that, you start placing a value by them. And I use a spreadsheet and I'm developing a program so it'll all be automated, but you put a value by them. And now you know that if it's, let's use it's an accounting firm. Let's just say you're trying to sell real estate to them or get lease space for them. So now you know if they have 50 employees, they're going to need X square footage per employee or an average square footage of X. So now you know about what they're worth to you in commissions because now you know what a lease would be. So when we put that together, now we know what their value is. And everybody will interrupt me today while you're listening and go, yeah, but they're not going to buy from me because they buy nationally or they have a brother-in-law that does all their work. And I got that. It still doesn't change the fact that they're a possibility for us. And in fact, they're right in the segment that we are the best at. So the other value of staying focused on this segment, and it's huge, is now you can target where they hang out. And what do I mean by target where they hang out? Well, let's say you're working the accounting profession, it's a local area. Generally, they have an association. It might be, in our case, I'm from Tampa Bay. It might be the Tampa Bay CPA Association or something to that effect, or financial planners, or whatever it is. Now you know where they hang out. So now you can become an associate member and go to meetings and get to know them. Again, don't go in there and start puking on them and telling them that they need to buy from you. Just getting to know them. The other thing is, you know what publications they read. So they probably have maybe at max 3 to 5 publications that are specific to their industry that they read. Could be national, could be local, but at the end of the day, you now have a source that you can reach them through writing articles, placing ads, and becoming relevant there. And then lastly, you can become an industry expert. So whatever you're doing, and now you know you're segmenting a specific area, you start building out a program that deals with the issue of the day for what you provide to that industry. So as the industry gets to know that you are working not on behalf of yourself, but on behalf of the greater good of the industry and education, you'll become an influencer and an expert, and they'll want to engage with you. So now you've got a focus segment. You know what they are looking for. You know where they hang out, and then you establish these values. So you know if you were to close them today, again, forget the excuses. I don't want to hear the self-talk about why they're not going to do business with you. I want you to just do what we're talking about and outline. So now you know all this really cool stuff. Then you want to say, do I know? And now you rank them. So each one of them, you say, do I know 3 people in there? And if I know 3, rank any 3 of those 1 to 10. In fact, rank all 3 of them 1 to 10. With 1, I don't know anything. 10, I know everything. Could be even relative. And rank it for all 3. Those 3, if they were all 10s, would be a 30. If they were all 5s, they'd be a 15. And then you create an average. So if they're all 5s, or they're a 1, call it 9, and a 5, clearly that would be a total of 15 divided by the 3. Your average relationship would be a 5. So once you start ranking these potential clients, what you will find 100% of the time is those that you have no business with or have not quoted and lost sales with, you will have really low rankings. Those that you know well, have relationships with, you'll have high rankings. So then you look at that. Then you take your rankings and extract that back to their value. So if somebody's worth $100,000 worth of income to you and they have a 2 ranking, and you have somebody that's worth $1,000 in revenue to you and they have a 10 ranking, it clearly points to that you are not reaching out and getting to the larger opportunities. And so that's when you do this. And this is what blows people away. So you have no relationship. You have every excuse that they're owned by another company. So now you budget 2 years to build that relationship. Yep, you heard it right. 2 years. I had a customer one time tell me, I can't budget 2 years. That's too long. And I said, well, how long have you been in business? He goes, 20 years. I go, how long have you not had this client? He goes, 20 years. I go, so what in the world is 2 years? You haven't done anything in 20. Why not budget 2? Now you're all in 22 years and you'll get the client. This is how crazy the self-talk is that people tell me why they can't get business. So now, then you budget 2 years. Now you establish a timeline. So let's go with a top potential client that you have no relationship with. So now I'm going to budget 2 years. I'm going to establish a timeline. First, I'm going to want to know 3 people. So I'm going to do company research. I'm going to go on the internet. Man, today, what a value. You can find everything about a company. I'm physically going to go call on the company because they're in my territories. I'm going to get my butt in the car and I'm going to go cold call. Yep, you heard it right. Cold calling. I'm actually going to go there. And somebody goes, well, how can you go there without an appointment? Easily. You walk in. Well, you're going to get thrown out. Exactly. But guess what? You're going to write a card to the person and you're going to say, sorry, I missed you. You're going to meet the receptionist. You're going to get to know the company. And what you're going to find, you're going to build these relationships. So, what are we talking about? We're talking about hyper growing your company or your sales without stress. And so now you've identified customers, you've targeted them, you're in an industry you can become an expert. Now what you do is you just work on that process of developing those relationships. Now, this particular company, actually 2 different companies, they go, well, Dean, you don't understand. I just don't have time. So I took out my iPhone and we hit 10 minutes and we stared at each other for 10 minutes. So I want you as a listener, pull your phone out or take your stopwatch or some form of timing. Click on 10 minutes and then just shut up and look at the mirror for 10 minutes. Yep, you're right. That's going to seem like and is an eternity. So if you take 10 minutes a day and work what we just shared, that's 60 hours a year. In 60 hours a year, you're working at developing and growing your business in a segment that you have self-talked yourself into believing you couldn't get. Here's what happens. I had one of my clients yesterday. This just so rocked my world. He texted me and he goes, Dean, I've been doing what you said on this big couple PVs for the last 6 months. I've been following exactly what you've shared for me to do. And he goes, I'm got to tell you, I was a skeptic. This is me conversing with him after I got the text, but I'll tell you what the text was. And he goes, I got to believe I got to tell you, I was a skeptic. But you insisted just to do it to prove you wrong, prove me wrong, Dean Akers. And he said, but his text was, guess what? The text, question mark, question mark. I made $25,000 today on accounts I bet I could have never got. Yep, you heard it right. He made $25,000. Now, this is a person, when he started the process, and he and I sat down, and he had the most money he had ever made was around $45,000. And he was in sales, and he was getting an opportunity to move into a sales role where he had infinite income if he was to follow some kind of process or was just a good salesperson. This young man has followed the process. $25,000 he made yesterday by following the process. He is a believer. When I talk to him, I go, how are you doing? He goes, I'm ticking, I'm doing my PVs, assessing my big accounts. And it made me smile. This past week was pretty awesome. Like I said, I had some tragedy this past week, but I had another individual who is following the roles perfectly. He's got his PVs. He went to one of large accounts and he said, I went down to meet other accounts in the area that are big PVs. Before he had tried to email them for years. He stopped by and this person goes, wow, thank you for stopping by. Now this is somebody he'd been trying to get to for 6 years and they would never even respond. he started visiting with them and they go, your timing is perfect. Here's all this data. Can you look at working with us? OMG. So I've had all these wins this past week, and here's the common denominator. They knew the customer segment they want to go after. They listed the customer segment they wanted to go after. They knew what the value of the customer would be when the customer chose them. And then they continued to work that customer to build relationships 3 deep and to get to know them and to constantly, as we call it, talk, touch them, and create value. So this has been a great week, and it's a reinforcement to the last 40 years of being in sales. And while I do adjunct CEO with a lot of companies, and I do this podcast every week, I can tell you it keeps going back to the basics. And when we get out of control or we think business is tough, let's go back to the basics. So here's your assignment for the week. Make a list of all the potential customers in your market area that could buy from you and what you think they could buy from you in total value. Do not self-talk and say they're not going to buy from you for whatever reason. All I want you to do is make that list. When you make that list and you know what they'll make for you, how much money they could make for you when they buy from you, then divide it by your hourly rate. So if you want to make $200,000 a year, that's $100 an hour. Divide that income by that hourly rate, and then look at that number. And if it's like 40 or 50 hours, ask yourself, have I ever worked 40 or 50 hours? Now you have a strategy that says, I am going to work this account for 40 or 50 hours over the next 2 years, very subtly, to get the business. And here's what I've found in my career. In my career, when I've done this, I have gotten the account 100% of the time. Yep, you heard it right. I've gotten the account 100% of the time. Huge companies. So I want you to go out there. I want you to go out there and be successful. I want you to go out there and if you have a huge win, text me. Text me at 813-625-1460 and say, man, I just had a big win. Dean, thank you. This just happened. When I got that text from that individual that said, I made $25,000 today following the process, and he started it 6-8 months ago, so it wasn't this on a podcast. It just made me smile with happiness. And my happiness was the happiness for him. My happiness was the success of another journey. And I think my biggest happiness was being able to share today to all my listeners across 30 plus countries and thousands of you every week, the value of this. It makes me happy to know that as you execute it, I'm going to have more of those I made $25,000 days. So thanks for listening. You can always go to our podcast site and listen to prior episodes. If you like it, please subscribe. If you need help, reach out at help@adjunctceo.com. Until next week, keep them coming and make me smile. Make me proud. Make this podcast worth something for you. Follow some of the stuff I'm sharing with you. And I cannot wait to get your I made $25,000 today text.
We hope you enjoyed today's show. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. If you have any questions or need some help, just email help@adjunctceo.com. Thanks for tuning in.